Oh my gosh, something really sad happened to me. Oh, and to my baby and my family and my future. All jokes aside, something really sad happened. So, a few weeks ago, actually probably closer to a month ago, I was selling some lamps and I stupidly unplugged the freezer in the garage that had the majority of my milk stash. I'm breastfeeding my baby and pumping, and I unplugged this freezer that had most of the milk in it and to plug in the lamp that I was trying to sell for $5 and display that it was working and that it would turn on. And then I never plugged the freezer back in. Thanksgiving came and went. My birthday came and went. We've been living life for like a good month, maybe even a month and a half. And last night I went to put all of the bags of milk that I've had in our inside freezer into the outside freezer, and I realized, wow, it smells really bad in there. And I just kind of tossed the milk in, and then I was like, why does it smell bad in there? I open it up and I'm like overpowered, and I realized all of the milk is like bad. And you have to understand it, and I haven't like cried or anything. I wish I could. Truth be told, I am so tired and stressed out, and I'm juggling so many things. This is like the least of my issues right now. I wouldn't say it's the least, but it's on the lower end of the spectrum. But you have to understand what a great loss this is. So I had the baby over 7 months ago. From the time I had the baby until just about 2 months ago-ish, I have been pumping multiple times a day. And to get about 6 ounces or so of milk, you've got to pump for like 15 to 20 minutes, or at least I do. Some women it's a lot harder, but I have to pump for about 15 to 20 minutes to get about 6 ounces of milk. And then you put it in a little bag and you freeze it and get all excited about your great milk supply and how you will be able to stop breastfeeding and feed your baby from your stash. A stash is also nice because it will allow me to go out of town for the weekend. And I've already gone on one trip. We've used the stash to give to babysitters. We've used it on days that I don't want to breastfeed, which hasn't been too many, because here's the deal. Even if you're not breastfeeding, you still have to pump like every 3 or 4 hours, and you actually have to pump a little bit more if you're not with the baby to keep the milk going, because it's all supply and demand. And so the loss is not just the hope of, oh, now I've got, 3 or 4 months of milk I can give my baby after I'm done breastfeeding. And the reason I want to quit breastfeeding is because I learned just a few months ago that my body is not healing as quickly because of all of the breastfeeding that I'm doing, and the pumping. And whenever I kind of scaled back on it, my body started healing like rapidly from my C-section. And before, it was hard just to like go for a walk around the block. Like, it's pretty significant, the lack of sleep, because you have to pump and empty your breasts every 3 or 4 hours. And so what I typically do is I pump right before I go to bed around 10 or 11. Then I would wake up, I would do a dream feed. So the baby usually doesn't even really wake up, and they'll do a full feed. And then I would come out here to the living room and I would pump for another 20 minutes, because you get the most milk in the middle of the night. So I'm spending like a full hour to an hour and a half feeding the baby and pumping around 3 or 4 a.m. Then I would get up again and do it around 6 or 7 a.m. And this is like round the clock. And I did it for months where I pumped 3 or 4 times a day at least. And then I would do 2 or 3 pumps in the night. So that's a lot of pumping. I scaled back when I realized that my body was healing the more rest I got. Who would have thought? But the more I could rest, the more my body was healing. And so I scaled back and I started doing more of an on-demand feeding where I'm only feeding the baby and my milk supply tanked. Compared to what it was, I mean, I was making 40 extra ounces a day, and now I'm making about 6 extra ounces a day. And I'm sure if I wanted to throw in another pump or two, I'd probably be able to generate 15 to 20 if I really wanted to. But it's very time consuming. I mean, if you think about it, you're feeding the baby 4 or 5 hours a day if you're breastfeeding. And then if you throw in another 5 or 6 pumping sessions at 15 to 20 minutes a piece, that's like a couple of hours or more of time that you're spending just to generate this milk and save it. So the cost is steep, but I was thinking about it last night because my first thought whenever I realized all of this milk has thawed out, and what heartbreak, my first thought was, oh, this is like so disappointing. I really wanted to feed my baby my milk because it's perfectly tailored to her. I really wanted to have the stash like several months built up so that I could quit breastfeeding earlier and then get kind of a head start on losing weight, because that's another thing that you really don't know how your body is going to respond to breastfeeding. But some women struggle to lose weight whenever they're breastfeeding because of all of the hormones in your system that it takes to produce the milk. And I'm one of those people. And my mom and my sister said that they struggle with the same thing. So I don't think it is just me. I think it's like a genetic thing. But I was thinking, okay, I need to like quit breastfeeding sooner rather than later so I can lose weight before we have another baby. And we're not getting any younger, so we kind of want to have our babies and be done with it and then move on with enjoying our family. The whole idea, this is going to make some people laugh because it's a different song than what I was singing several months ago, but I knew when I was singing then, I knew what I was thinking, what I would be thinking now, if that makes sense. And that is, I didn't really want to fully start to feel like myself again because it is a marathon. If you know that you want to have more than one child, you've got to have your head in the game, man, because it is tough. And I knew it was tough back then. And my whole mentality, what it was and what it is I think it is better to run it like a marathon and know that for several years I am going to be tired, stressed, overwhelmed, and challenged in different ways with an infant, with pregnancies, with giving birth, recovery, raising infants in the middle of all of that, like sleepless nights. That is a different type of challenge than raising elementary aged children. It's a different challenge than raising teenagers, young adults, and so forth. And because I am so sleep dependent, and because it is really a challenge for me to slow down, I think that that's probably a very identifiable challenge for a lot of people. You could probably relate. I just know, okay, I need to have my head in the game. I do not want to be having my next baby when my oldest is like 3 or 4, because then you're like starting all over again. So I don't want to get to that place where I have ended a season and then I'm suddenly starting all over again, because that's like jerky, I just want to zoom through it, have a bunch of babies in a row, and then be done with pregnancy and birth, and I can know and have the peace of knowing that I'm going to get my body back and yada yada. Now, when I realized I lost all that milk, I really wasn't that disappointed. I was bummed out because I was like, oh man, what a waste, But then I was thinking about it and I was like, but what did I really waste? I have about 4 months, maybe 4.5 months of milk saved up at this point. It's not enough to get through the second year. You want to keep your baby apparently on milk for the first 2 years at least. It's not enough to get through the second year. So even if I wanted to quit breastfeeding when she turns 1, I still have to figure out a solution to, what am I going to do? Because I need to start losing weight soon. And so I was thinking, all right, I would have had to look at some other options or formula or whatever anyway. So that's the first thing. The second thing I was thinking was, well, what did this whole process do for me? What did this whole process do for my connection with my daughter? And that is where I have absolutely no regrets. And it's making me emotional because of the sacrifice and because of the investment. And I think this is where a lot of women could be tempted to be really devastated if they were so focused on the milk. But the reason why I am emotional and why it affects me emotionally when I think about the sacrifice I've made, because you have to understand, I crunch the numbers, and what the loss is like, something like 75 hours spent just pumping over several months. And I still have a whole nother freezer that has milk in it, so I haven't lost everything, thank God. But getting up in the night, choosing to endure day after day, several times a day for hours to pump to get a little bit of milk and save it, it bonds you in a way because you're laying your life down for someone else. It bonds you because you're taking the less selfish route. You are choosing to give up things that you could be doing. You're choosing to postpone your healing. You're choosing to postpone weight loss. You're choosing to engage. You're choosing to have your nipples sucked on like for hours a day when you don't feel like it, or whenever it hurts, or whenever you're so exhausted and you just wish you could go to sleep, but you have to stay up for 20 minutes more. Or 30 minutes more, or longer if you consider like the time it takes to wash the parts and to clean everything and to store the milk, because that takes time too. The 75 hours, that's just the pump time. That's not the time it takes to like wash everything and to store the milk and to log it in the inventory and, yada, yada. And learning to lay your life down, that is what having a marriage is about. That's what having children is about. That is the call of the parent. It's the call of the spouse, is to find ways to promote someone above yourself. And that's what makes me emotional, because whenever I think of that daily choice, and that choice moment by moment, pump session by pump session, I'm laying my life down, I'm giving of myself, I'm choosing to take on a whole array of stressors to prioritize this. That is something I do not regret, not one bit. And during this whole time, I've been dealing with a physical recovery. We've been having to get some finances in order, which is an understatement of understatements. I've had to organize. We got married. We merged 2 lives. We merged 2 businesses. We hired an accountant who screwed everything up, like to the point where other accountants and bookkeepers did not want to take us on as clients. So we had to figure out a way to fix it. So that's been going on all year. Learning to be parents, running a business, trying to get 2 dogs, very active dogs, enough exercise with significant physical limitations after birth, and throw a baby in the mix, so ministry stuff, like there's so many things going on. So to prioritize the pumping in the midst of all of these other things that feel very important and that practically speaking are incredibly important. I mean, we have to run our business. We have to get the finances in order. We have to catch up on our taxes. We've committed to be a part of a couple of different ministry opportunities, and there are obligations associated with that are pretty time consuming. Keeping up with relationships, and to take so many times per day to sit and to pump and to make the milk, only to realize that it's all gone, I have discovered was not a waste. And it fills my heart with gratitude. It fills my heart with thankfulness, because the pumping and the milk and the stash is really more about a process. It's about a bond. It's about learning to lay my life down. And that's my takeaway from this loss. I'm still proud. I feel like I still did an incredible job. I have no regrets. I hope to be able to do the same thing whenever I have the next baby. And it doesn't change my commitment or my plan to continue to breastfeed and to continue to pump not 40 ounces a day. I'm not, and that's the thing, because I was like, man, I could get it back if I really wanted to. I've had my milk supply tank a few times and I've been able to resurrect it back to full capacity. And I just don't think I want to do that. Like, I'm finally getting rest. I'm finally feeling more like myself. And I'm able to feed my baby what she needs and have a little extra, and I think maybe that's good enough. I feel like if I were a lot earlier along in the postpartum, I might try to fight to get the milk back, and then build up another stash. But now I'm just like, nope. Not gonna do that. Like, I mean, the time is just too precious at this point, because it's one thing to like give like that for 6 months, and then to say, okay, I'm gonna taper off. I'm gonna like prioritize work and the home life and some other things a little bit more. Gosh, man, I wish I had unlimited time, because I would totally build it back. But that was my takeaway. I don't know if this will encourage anyone. I see girls post in the breastfeeding groups all the time about losing their stash or something like this happening. And I've seen people who seem pretty devastated over it. I'm not, because this is what I'm remembering. The value was not just in the milk. And I just want, if you're watching this and if this speaks to you in that way, and maybe it even speaks to you in a totally different genre of life, but you're dealing with a loss or what feels like a waste, a wasted effort, a wasted investment, the loss of something you've had to work really hard for. I just want to affirm you and affirm the character that you developed, affirm the self-control, the commitment, the perseverance, the longevity. Like, there are so many things that you can find gratitude within in light of a very disappointing loss. And that is how I hope to encourage you. I know it encouraged me whenever I reflected on that in light of my own loss of my milk. And it was the healthiest milk too. Oh my gosh, man. Postpartum, for the first several months, I was eating so freaking healthy. And I was taking all of these like extremely expensive supplements, and I was doing my bone broth. I did this whole postpartum plan for the first 2 months. Like, I really gave it my all, man. And that's the milk that went down the tubes. So I think the milk that's left is like when I started drinking again and eating pizza and, you know, stuff like that. I'm stopping now though, because I am desperately trying to kind of regain my body again so that I can do all of this once more. So that's the story. I'm going to end now because I know the video is long, and I will talk to you later. Bye.